States across the U.S. drop the hammer on TikTok with lawsuits aimed at the popular app. An AI tool that helps you apply for a job means we might not have any humans involved in the hiring in the future. And the government now says complicated passwords might be more harmful than longer ones. We're going to talk about these stories and more on this Tech News Roundup of Today in Tech. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. The guy behind the monitors is Chris. Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
Going well. And joining the show this week as guest co-host is RJ Bardsley. He is partner and co-CEO of Wireside Communications, and he's got expertise in understanding deep tech stories and providing business and consumer narratives for brands around the world. You've got 3 decades of tech experience. You were there in the early days of the internet? Wait, what was the first one that you... what was the first big stories that you guys were working on back in the day?
Well, one of the first technologies we covered, or I worked on, was a platform that provided a video feed for the Hong Kong handover. So that should tell you something,
right? And I understand your first job was on an Alaskan fishing vessel.
Yeah, worked 2 seasons on a fishing boat up in Alaska, and that really solidified my desire to have a warm, right, climate-controlled desk job.
And you said the heck with that. I want to be in technology and communications.
No fun. That's no fun. Come on.
Yeah. So you've been around Silicon Valley too a lot. Like you're currently on the East Coast, right? But you've seen Silicon Valley culture as well, so you've got all that expertise too, right?
Yeah, 17 years in the Valley, so COVID sent me packing though.
Yeah, well, I think you've done your time. I think we've all had to do our time in Silicon Valley at one point. All right, let's jump into some of the news stories. The big one was this lawsuit that the state's attorneys general filed in across their court system. More than a dozen states and the District of Columbia filed lawsuits against TikTok, saying that the popular short-form video app is designed to be addictive to kids and harms their mental health. The lawsuits stem from a national investigation into TikTok, which was launched in March 2022 by a bipartisan coalition of attorneys general from many states, including New York, California, Kentucky, and New Jersey. All of the complaints were filed in state courts, and at the heart of each lawsuit is this TikTok algorithm, which powers what users see on the platform by populating the app's main For You feed with content tailored to people's interests. The lawsuits note that TikTok design features that they say addict children to the platform, such as the ability to scroll endlessly through content, push notifications that come with built-in buzzes, and face filters that create unattainable appearances for users. Quote, they've chosen profit over the health and safety, well-being, and future of our children. This is a California Attorney General Rob Bonta said at a news conference. And that is not something we can accept, so we've sued. The latest lawsuits come nearly a year after dozens of states sued Instagram parent Meta in state and federal courts for harming young people and contributing to the youth mental health crisis by knowingly and deliberately designing addictive features that keep kids hooked on algorithms on the platforms. So I think YouTube is also part of this lawsuit as well. Well, not this one, but the previous one. We've done a lot of episodes of the show. We had one of the lawyers on at one point. We've had some social media psychologists talking about their stuff. So we've covered this issue a lot on the show. But one of the interesting things that also came out of this, before I get to your thoughts, RJ, was that in the DC lawsuit, they specifically, Brian Schwab, who is the Attorney General for the District of Columbia, said that basically TikTok is exploiting children financially by operating an unlicensed digital currency similar to poker chips at a casino. Basically, children can buy virtual tokens, which are called TikTok coins, with real money, and the company gets 50% of the revenue from the purchases. Children are able to conduct the financial transactions, the suit adds, because they can easily bypass the company's weak age verification tools, which TikTok is aware of and fails to address. TikTok coins can then be used to purchase digital gifts that users can send to others who are live streaming themselves on the social media app. Those streamers can then exchange the gifts they receive for real money. So there's a bunch of issues involved in this lawsuit. I think when you take this lawsuit or this series of lawsuits, add it to the stuff that Instagram and Meta's going through, the tide is basically turning against a lot of these social media companies and the algorithms that they are pushing towards kids. So RJ, you want to give me your thoughts on either this lawsuit, this bunch of lawsuits, or the whole issue in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating issue, right? There's so many layers to it. At the heart of this, I think what we all tried to do, or what we all thought the promise of social media was this whole new world of connectivity and access, right? And ability to connect with each other. But it's just gotten so polluted with all of these algorithms that are just meant to, maximize dopamine. And now this new lawsuit that comes on top of it, I mean, this is just bad business practices. I mean, we got to be there's got to be some guardrails on there. In my opinion, there's got to be guardrails on there that reserve, some platform of connectivity and connection and access for people that want it, and not be flooded by advertisements and tokens and purchases and all of that stuff all the time.
Right. Now, part of the issue here, too, with TikTok was that it is basically owned by the Chinese government. I know that ByteDance is a Chinese company, but the majority of that is controlled by the Communist Party in China. So it got really political in Washington. I mean, they passed the law that says that they have to divest themselves from China within a year. So, it's not a big surprise to see this lawsuit, especially since they've been doing the investigation since 2022. The evidence from what we've discovered when we've been talking to a lot of the psychologists and the mental health experts is there. They've got, studies, and they show even like brain scans of people that are addicted to this app. Anecdotally, I've seen my kids and how they operate with TikTok and how they are on their phones scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Like this feed does feel like it's an addicting type of a thing. So again, not really surprising, but I think it's good that we'll eventually get to a point where they either fix it or they get rid of TikTok. Or they sell it and then try to make it a better thing. In fact, I'm going to give a sneak peek. We've got another episode coming up in a few weeks where we're going to talk to one of the people that's interested in buying TikTok, and they're going to try to. They say that they can improve it through a different digital platform. So stay tuned on that one.
We're going to have Elon Musk on the show?
No, it's not Elon Musk. You think he's going to buy TikTok? I think he wants to stay away from TikTok. Oh, okay.
He's going to call it X-Talk.
There we go.
Great. Yeah, if you read like the first story from the AP, like also mentions like all of the different harmful things that people are getting around. Like, what was it? One of the things. Let me see if I can find it here. Officials say teens are frequently exploited for sexually explicit content through TikTok's live streaming feature, which has allowed the app to operate essentially as a virtual strip club without any age restrictions. They say the cut the company gets from that allows it to profit from this exploitation. So yeah, not good if you're now again, I'm sure that people that love the platform and use it, responsibly. It's not like everyone's using it in this bad way. But there's the whole First Amendment issue, and they're going to be like, "Why are you picking on TikTok?" It's like, well, there's a lot of reasons we're picking on TikTok, and one of them is the China ownership, because again, they could change this algorithm, right? Like, don't they? Like we talked about this on the show too, Chris. Where if you watch people in China using TikTok, all of the feeds that are given to the kids are all about educational things and helpful tips and. It's just the garbage that gets sent to the U.S. I think there's some manipulation going on. I
think for the U.S., there should be some sort of age restriction on just social media in general, whether it's Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, any other social media app out there. There should be age restrictions, I think.
Yeah. And
go
ahead, RJ.
I was going to say, I think that's a really good idea. I mean, when you think of other things that have the same sort of characteristics as social media, and mostly they're chemical, right? Tobacco, alcohol, hallucinogenics, pot, any of that. All of that stuff is where it's legal, it's age restricted. And I think that we need to think about social media when it has these sort of implications. I was reading a story the other day, or a piece out from McLean's Hospital here in Boston, outside of Boston. And they're talking about how when you step away from social media, you have basically withdrawal symptoms because of the lack of dopamine. So anything like this, I think we do have to look into age restrictions. It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I'm going to give a quick anecdote, and my kids will hate this because they don't like it when I talk about them on the show. But the other day, there was an issue where my son was not doing something he was supposed to be doing. So the only access we have to in terms of punishment now is just take away his phone. The whole. All the other disciplinary things, he doesn't, if you take away his video games, you take away the computer, he's like, I don't care. I can live without that. But the phone is now such the central part of their life, that, so we took it away for like a day. And the rest of the day, he was miserable. He was mopey. He was just like not, and I'm like, dude, you've got to understand, like, this is just a phone.
Go outside, rake some leaves, do some yard work.
Yeah, I mean, I could have.
That's what I had to do when I was growing up.
When you were punished, when you were disciplined as a child?
No, just as chores.
Yeah, I know. You're gonna get there, Chris, when your kids grow up a little bit more.
The thing is like, as I mentioned earlier, the idea of having age restrictions on social media and stuff like that. I mean, I would even argue, the type of smartphone that you have, like especially with young kids, I think they really should be very restricted. Have limited internet access.
Right.
And then you're starting to see this movement among new parents where when their kid becomes of age, they might get like the old Nokia brick phone or those smartphones that have just strict limited access, and it at the end of the day it kind of does fall upon the parent to try to censor the type of access that they have with the smartphone, social media, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to become more prevalent.
What's interesting to me too is that you're going after social media apps and they're so tightly connected with the phone, but that none of us are really looking at the phone itself. And I think we've had episodes on this, is like, why do the smartphone makers get such a free pass? We could go, why aren't we talking with Apple about how they've addicted everybody to that smartphone, or Google for the Pixel phones, or Samsung for that Android device? Like, it's, if you took away all of the social media apps, you would still find people addicted to their smartphones. They would just be, playing games or,
well, it might have to be something.
Joke. I was going to say that they're on their calculator app all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it might have to be Google related, because a lot of the apps are they're either they're through Google, or they're through the iTunes, the Apple Store, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't have an iPhone. So
like you're not seeing any, again, you're not seeing any lawsuits after the makers of Candy Crush, because that was the big game for a while, or Angry Birds. It was like, it was acceptable to be addicted to a game, so to speak. There's something about social media that makes it different, right, RJ?
Yeah, I think there is. I think, I think this particular case, right, where it's targeting kids with this, with this digital currency. I think that is a really good example of taking advantage where you shouldn't take advantage. If it's okay, I wanted to just back up to something that you were talking about a little bit earlier in terms of the foreign ownership. Mm-hmm. And I'm not an expert in this at all, but it's my understanding that it's illegal for foreign entities to own television and radio networks or airlines here in the U.S. So it seems to me that it would follow suit, right? Because this is a communications platform, super influential across, a big swath of the public.
Right.
So it would make sense to me that there would be restrictions around that.
Right. And, it's also telling that when this law was passed to tell TikTok to get rid of the Chinese ownership, that the company was, or to sell the company, basically to sell TikTok. It was all about, well, we're not giving up this algorithm. So it was kind of telling that they know that the algorithm is doing this. Like if there was not a problem with the algorithm, or if they could just flip a switch and make it not as addictive, they could and they would, but they're hiding something with this algorithm.
Well, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they know what they're doing. They're taking advantage of our population and the access. And I mean, there are other things I could get into, but.
Yeah, and they've done the exact same thing. I mean, I worked for several years in China, and you cannot access the Western social networks or search engines inside of China. So they're not allowing foreign entrants into their market either. So
right.
tells you something.
But in theory, we as a democracy, or as, whatever government we have these days, is supposed to be better than China, in theory.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it should be interesting to see where this goes, and we'll be following the story as it develops as well. Second other big story from the week, this was Elon Musk's robo-taxi debut. We are filming this ahead of the event, so I'm take this with a grain of salt. But all of the expectations is that Tesla is going to be holding this primetime event in Hollywood. They're going to show off its robo-taxi, self-driving car that they're going to then give rides to, and I think so. The other interesting part about this too is that Tesla wants to, allegedly, again, I don't know the exact facts yet, and by the time everyone's watching this, the event will have already occurred too. So we'll probably talk more about this next week, RJ, too. What I think it was something about the network that he wants to set up so that if you own a Tesla and you're not using it, you can have it become part of this robo-taxi fleet. So if you park your car outside my office and then someone wants to use that as a robo-taxi, they can use your car. And then as long as it's back by 5 o'clock or whenever you need to use it again.
Yeah, that's...
It's yeah,
that's actually not that bad.
I've heard this theory before that like all autonomous cars in the future, if you own one, you'll be able to then lease it out, and then you can make money off of the fares. Apparently, like that's I think what Uber is looking to do too, or at some point in the future. So there's a lot of stuff around that what Tesla's doing, but there was also another story that basically said that nearly 2/3 of Americans said that they would not want to ride in a driverless passenger vehicle if they had the opportunity. This was according to a Pew Research Center survey. That's because residents in cities that have yet to experience robotaxis remain unfamiliar with the technology, while those in cities with driverless cabs have not yet forgotten about high-profile accidents involving other companies such as GM-owned Cruise. So you're already then announcing a new type of vehicle into a space in a public that's still very skeptical. And I know that RJ, you were talking to me earlier about you have a lot of doubts about this technology too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great technology, right? But getting drivers out of taxis or Ubers, is that really the problem we need to be solving? Like, is that what does that do for us? I love tech. I love anything that's innovative. I think Elon Musk is doing a lot of great things in terms of SpaceX and Tesla, really bringing us forward as a culture and society in a lot of ways. But this is one of those things that it's like, what do we get from this? And then the other thing that's super interesting to me when you sent this, when you mentioned this article, I thought back to an article that came out, I think it was in April of this year, with the government investigating all of the crashes from autopilot.
Right.
I think there have been 956 crashes between 2018 and 2023.
Yeah.
That the government is investigating. So it's interesting to me that he's the one that's bringing this forward. I mean, he's got the track record and he's got the brand to do it, right?
Yeah.
Everybody trusts Tesla. But.
Well, yeah, I mean, even, for the past 6 or 7 years when they launched that autopilot feature, he kept calling it self-driving, but those of us in the industry that knew, that were covering the industry were like, that's not a completely autonomous car. It's almost like auto assist or driver assistance systems rather than an actual full
lane keep assist.
Like lane assist, which is what my awesome Honda Civic has. And where if I start to veer, it beeps at me. So, The other thing is that the main idea behind driverless cars, RJ, was you were trying to prevent accidents from regular drivers. So there's always a statistic that they always say that 500,000 people die in the U.S. every year, or it was some kind of number like that. So the idea is that autonomous vehicles, if everyone has an autonomous vehicle on the road, you will greatly reduce the chance of auto accidents. The problem is that not everybody is going to have an autonomous car, nor does everybody want an autonomous car. Especially here in the U.S., we're a car culture country. since the 1950s. I mean, that's almost 100 years now. The vehicles have been around for even longer. So the problem we have currently is you're trying to deploy autonomous cars in an infrastructure where you still have drivers. And again, you know Boston, RJ, like it's, there's a reason that they're not doing a lot of testing in Boston because of the way that Boston drivers react and act. How many times have you seen someone in the right lane, put their blinker on and drive over two lanes to take a left? That behavior, plus then you've got weather in the winter. You've got, you've got snow that covers lane markings and all this other stuff and rain.
Winter would be the biggest.
Yeah.
Like, how does an autonomous vehicle drive in winter?
Yeah, that's why most of the testing happens in I don't even know if they're in Florida, but in Texas and Arizona or in Vegas. Those are the big.
You used to see a lot
in California.
You used to see a lot of startups, autonomous driving startups in the Asian countries.
Yeah.
Because there's really no there's not that much driving going on, and
is because of
like Singapore.
Public transport.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they have a lot more open roads, a lot more empty roads, and stuff like that. But I think for autonomous vehicles to really take off, you really have to have every single vehicle on rails, because there's too many variables.
Or you have to completely ban driving for other cars. Like you couldn't, like I would have to give up my Honda Civic.
Yeah, every vehicle on the road would have to be on rails.
Or it would either have to, or it would have to be semi-autonomous, or fully autonomous.
Yeah.
And then, you can't convert. Well, you can convert at a great cost your existing car into the new one, but
maybe the ramp onto that is you'll have sort of autonomous zones. I could see that happening where the center of London or the center of New York is a fully autonomous zone, and you don't have individual people driving, but you get out to the burbs, you get out to the country, and that's not an autonomous zone. So It'd be interesting to see. One of the things I like about this particular thing is the whole reusing automobiles. So if you're in the office for 8 hours a day, then your Tesla's out there, bringing people around. That keeps a lot of batteries off the road, which is good for the environment. And I think that's a really positive part of this story.
Right, but have they figured out the cost of the wear and tear on the vehicle? Do they reimburse the owner of that car for that wear and tear? That's the issue with a lot of people that drive Ubers and Lyfts for a living, is that are you making enough money to pay for the gas and then pay for the maintenance and the wear and tear on the car? I'm not sure.
Or do you have fractional purchases, right? Like, is a vehicle now a fractional purchase where you buy it for a certain part of the day or something?
Yeah, I've seen some startups that do that too, where you're not actually owning a car anymore. You basically lease it. That's the old Zipcar model, right? You just pick up a car when you need it. Even more than a rental, it's like a very short term, one trip rental, right? Yeah. So, all right, we'll talk more about next week when we know more about what Elon Musk is doing. Third story that I want to talk about was, and this is a kind of a scary thing, but this is also related to some of the China stuff that we were talking to. American Water, which is the largest water utility in the U.S., disclosed that it has been hit by a cyber attack. The Camden, New Jersey-based company said in a security statement on its website that it had learned of unauthorized activity in our computer networks and systems last Thursday, which it determined to be a result of a cybersecurity incident. The company said on Tuesday it had shut down its customer service portal, and as a result, its billing function until further notice, and will not charge any late fees or other fees related to billing as long as the system is down. Some recent hacks of major U.S. companies have also brought key online systems to a halt and created chaos for consumers and businesses, such as the hack of United Health, which led to nationwide difficulty among patients that need prescriptions filled and healthcare professionals needing to be paid for the services. Hacks targeting U.S. water infrastructure in particular have been increasing, with some of the attacks linked to geopolitical rivals of the U.S., including Iran, Russia, and China. Yeah, this was a very scary story. So check out the show notes and to read it more. I think some of the attacks against companies were always ransomware based or malware based, and so that they were trying to make money for a lot of these gangs. But the infrastructure attacks always seem to be geopolitical motivated. Like, and then there's been reports that China's kind of testing our system to get ready for a potential attack if we ever go to war with them. Like, this is some pretty scary stuff. RJ, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the same thing that you're saying. Really scary stuff. And I've been following the CHIPS Act pretty closely because I'm fascinated by that, and I'm really interested in the idea that having chip manufacturing in this country is it's national defense, right? It's national security. I wonder if we need a CHIPS Act level thing to focus on infrastructure. Does our government, do we as a country need to focus a lot more resources on beefing up the security around utilities and infrastructure? It feels like maybe that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea, but I also think, because like when we think about technology, we always look at technology as a good thing, a great thing. We should,
for the most part,
digitize, everything. We should, go
It's
digital.
mostly positive,
right? But I almost feel like when it comes to our actual physical infrastructure, I feel like that should be off grid. It should be a little bit.
That's an
archaic.
interesting thought.
Because the way that bad actors are able to shut down our utilities and waterways because they're connected. So what if we kind of need to build like a Faraday cage over our infrastructure like that by maybe taking it down a notch when it comes to connectivity or I mean, I have no ideas about utilities. That's just my opinion on it.
RJ, you've covered, you've been around this space for a while. Do you remember, like, that was initially when everybody was kind of connecting to the internet back in, I want to say the 2000 time frame. There was a lot of resistance from a lot of these utility places, right? Because of that fear. And I'm wondering if that fear went away, but like there's still a lot of security holes in these systems that may have connected to the overall internet.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting on one of the biggest issues here is that you're looking at probably a very heterogeneous environment, right? Where you've got newer things, but you've probably still got old Unidata and Universe, Informix databases. You've probably got a lot of things that are super easy to hack, and they're there because it was easier to bring them along than it was to replace them for things like customer data or transactional data or something like that. But in the end, now you've got this sort of wild spaghetti bowl full of applications and technologies,
right? And
it just becomes super vulnerable, and there's no going backwards to it. But yeah, there needs to be something.
Especially with water, it's such the requirement for just to have a life in the world. We were talking with one of our editors at Computer World, lives in Asheville, North Carolina, and that was a town that got hit really bad with Hurricane Helene, and her house was fine, and her neighborhood was relatively unharmed. She didn't have internet for a couple of days. She didn't have electric for a couple of days. She still doesn't have running water, and her biggest frustration was like, I can, we can operate with with what we've got right now with electric and internet, but those seem to be the big three: electric, internet access, and then running water. And she's like, I can't, they're doing things like looking at a solar shower perhaps, and there's a person that has a generator with a well, and he's sharing the water amongst the neighborhood. But it's like, anytime I've had a power outage, the first, the three things that you want to get back is electric, internet, and I don't even care about internet at this point, as long as I get electric and then some running water, or so that I can have heat at this point, especially in the winter. So I'm surprised that this water utility was hacked. They need to do a better job of making sure that they're protected, because again, if you can take out those infrastructures in any kind of battle, imagine a nationwide outage. Oof. Then we're talking some really big, dystopian futures, right?
I know, and when you see that on any science fiction movie where there's a doomsday scenario, usually that's how it starts, right? Like they turn off the traffic lights and then they turn off the water, and it's probably
I remember there was a televised adaptation of The Stand. Do you remember that? This was in the late 90s, early 2000s. You may not. It was on TV. It was like a miniseries.
I wasn't born yet.
Yeah, I know. You're such a youngin'. But I remember that the big deal after, so that was a virus that I think wiped out most of the population, and whoever was left. I just remember it sinking in with me, and I didn't read the whole book, but getting the power generator back online so that you could get electricity seemed to be a big focus of that story in the book. So, or in the series too. So imagine a really devastating scenario where you've got to now, not almost on a town by town basis, you would have to try to restore power. Like that's, even those zombie video games that we play, that's always a big deal is electricity, which is weird because I played Fallout a lot. RJ, I'm going down a couple of rabbit holes, but in Fallout, you still, this is a nuclear wasteland, and yet you still have electricity. So, because I think that the makers of the game was like, well, we don't want you to run around in the dark all the time in this game. Like, so when you're building the settlement,
or Edison, the Edison company is really good. So.
or they actually do like Tesla arc reactor type things. All right. So where did we end up on this? I think we're everyone secure your systems. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Let's do a better job, everybody.
I mean, it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month every day,
but
from what it seems.
Well, officially, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Does that mean in November we have to stop being aware of cybersecurity?
I think we just all need to get off the internet, disconnect all of our infrastructures, or everything.
What a great segue, because this is going to get brought up in this next topic, Chris. So we've talked about this on the show before with AI tools that help companies scan resumes and look for candidates that way. But now there's a tool called Auto Jobs Applier AI Hawk is currently trending on GitHub and is one of the most popular new projects there. It is actively being used by thousands of people to use AI to automatically apply for jobs on LinkedIn at scale. It is essentially a Python program that navigates LinkedIn and uses an LLM. Both OpenAI's GPT products and Google Gemini both work to generate custom cover letters and resumes based on a series of biographical details that a user codes into a script and tweaks them as necessary based on the job description and other information that the company has put on LinkedIn. Various tutorials and guides have been created for how to get the code up and running, which basically just requires users to install Python, tweak some code according to a template, program in an OpenAI API. This is already like too complicated for me. And then basically log into LinkedIn. So the guy who wrote the story from 404 Media said he was able to get this up and running in about 15 minutes. So it's also been gone viral because there's a couple of clones, including a company called Job Magic, whose tagline is to apply for jobs while you sleep, and proposes to essentially be AI Hawk for people who can't figure out how to get the Python code running. Oh, good. And then their Telegram community has 4,700 members and is full of people who have said they've gotten job interviews within days of having the AI submit tons of applications. One of the quotes, quote, ran it overnight, applied to around 150 jobs, got an HR call this morning, and I'm just getting started. I'm going to have it run 24/7, planning to apply to thousands of jobs. This time, I, the candidate, have the leverage, not some random HR. Because the HR companies were using all of these AI tools to scan resumes. So what's interesting about this article is that he's talking about a future where you're going to have AI talking to AI, and it becomes this whole dead internet theory, where that's what the dead internet theory is just a bunch of bots talking to other bots, and there's no humans involved in this. I think this is a great tool, to be honest, given the fact that how frustrating it is as a job applicant to try to get a job, and you have to custom your resume and your cover letter each time to that AI bot.
Well, we're flipping the script on them.
Yeah. And it's a little bit of it feels also like it's a little bit of a trolling thing too. Like, oh, you're going to use these tools to filter through my resume. I'll use the tool to make myself even better looking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, honestly,
I'm with you. I love this story for exactly that reason. And, I think I think we've all been waiting to see this flood of applications built on top of AI, and this is a great one. Wasn't there a movie out recently about like this sort of thing, except for dating apps, where you just had AI dating apps that would date other AI dating apps for people?
I'm not familiar with this, but if any viewer knows this, let us know, because I think that we're gonna have to look that up. Was it a good movie? Did you just see the trailer, or did you watch the whole movie?
No, it was a trailer thing. Let me see if I can.
Okay, well, yeah, we maybe we'll talk about that next week. But what was the premise of that movie, RJ?
Well, that movie was, what you did was you basically, I think what you did was you assigned a bot to go out there and work on the dating apps or the dating sites for you, so that you didn't have to do that. And the story was about these two bots that actually fell in love. And it was sort of this, my understanding of the movie was that it was examining consciousness and what qualified as consciousness with regards to AI and that sort of thing. But it's kind of, I don't know, if you've got bots hiring bots or bots interviewing bots, it seems like sort of a similar thread.
Well, our previous episode was just about, AI agents. A couple of episodes ago, we talked about this whole new wave of AI agents that are basically going to be, doing more tasks. Rather than us asking the AI to do something, the AI is going to become more proactive. I don't even know if that's the right word, but it's going to start taking on assignments of its own, and not in a take the world over type of scenario that everyone envisions as the nightmare scenario, but maybe it's just taking more initiative is what is the good term for this. So yeah, of course, obviously taking that to the extreme, then you've got, AI bots dating other AI bots and falling in love. That could be interesting. But getting back to the job stuff for a while, if I use a tool like this to apply for 30,000 jobs, just to try to see if I'll get an interview, I guess is a good thing. But I'd rather just have the HR system just be taken down. My thing is that we should all return to a day of where you're mailing out resumes and showing up to a job and applying in person. I don't even know if you could get away with that anymore for a white collar job. Maybe for some of, if it's a blue collar job, you could still show up and say, can I fill out an application or a resume? And then obviously, with teenagers, you could go to the store that you're looking to work for.
Yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, I agree with you in that I think the human component of the job and who you're hiring is the most important. But what I do like about this is, if you're being completely honest about your skill set and your experience, and you're applying to 30,000 jobs, I think that's all about access. And if we're eventually moving to a more remote or hybrid model where you can work anywhere and do anything, what you're doing is good for the employee and good for the organization, right? Because now the organization has access to, a lot more people from from all over the world, right?
Yeah.
And that employee has access now and can at load at a much higher number, they can apply. As long as everything's honest in terms of the facts and experience, I think that could potentially be a good thing.
Yeah, I want to ask you, since you are running a business, so you've done hiring and you've hired a bunch of people for your company. Do you find that it's easier to get more candidates through either AI screening, or when you have a position open, what's the procedure that you guys do these days versus maybe what you were doing when you first started the company?
I wish I was better equipped to answer that.
Okay.
With a really great recruiter, and I know she uses a combination of tech platforms.
Yeah.
But our best people come from the networks we know, right? So this, I guess, goes back to what you were saying. Like, it's the human element.
Yeah. So just as a follow-up on that, when I find myself, I've been out of work a couple of times through different layoffs and shutdowns and things like that. So when I was looking for work, I know what my skill set is. I'm a tech journalist. I've been in the journalism space for about 30 years. I have certain skills that I'm really good at and, other skills that I don't. But when I'm looking at job listings, sometimes it feels like the job listings that people write are they have a list like, this long, and they're expecting every candidate to be a super candidate. Like, you have to be, skilled in 18 different skills. And in reality, so when I would see these requirements, I started to self-censor myself. And I was like, well, I'm not going to apply for that because I'm pretty sure I won't get that job because I don't have, the skills in A, B, and C. I'd be great at D, E, and F, or, I'd be great in half of what the skills are looking for. And so I tended to self-censor myself and not apply. So now there's a point here. With the AI tools, I don't have to worry about that self-censoring anymore. But, and it's going to send out this and it probably apply for jobs that I'm not qualified for. But do I care about that? Because maybe they'll still give me a phone call at some point. Or if I apply to 30,000 jobs and I don't get any callbacks, then I just swirl into depression at that point, right? Like then I go like, what am I doing? That's another conundrum that people are going to have.
Then you evaluate, just becoming an artist and going and painting or something, right?
I reevaluate my life choices to get into this whole communication journalism space. Chris, any additional thoughts here?
Well, we got to go back to the old. You like
the idea of applying in person, right? Like, because as you mentioned, you mentioned this off the show, before the show was that actually shows a commitment that you're reliable when you actually show up for an interview or you actually show up to show their face.
Interesting today because the common work environment is Zoom, right? Working remotely. So it's like I don't even think showing up anymore is a big deal. You get to apply for a job and do your interview in your pajamas at home and no one's going to bat an eye, right? So I think showing up and dressing the part and all that doesn't really matter anymore, sadly.
I'm always impressed with people who do that. I'm always impressed with people who show up and present well.
Yeah. There's still room for people like that in the world. All right. One final story, Chris, and then RJ. Your complicated password might be doing more harm than good. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, recently released new guidelines to help keep government information systems secure, making significant changes to longstanding passwords best practices. In the guidelines, NIST says the benefit of complexity is usually outweighed by the downsides, since most people are not going to memorize passwords that consist of random jumbles of letters, numbers, and symbols, which means they likely write them down or store them somewhere that hackers could potentially access in the future. Online services will require users to create passwords that use a mix, but multiple analysis of breached password databases reveal that the benefit of such rules is less significant than initially thought. Length of the password has now become an easier metric than complexity, so the new suggestion appears to be using a lengthy string of words that you can actually remember, rather than trying to store something on a phone or use the same password over and over again for multiple accounts. So I find this is ironic the right word here? Because for years and years and years, we've been told by our IT department, capital letters, 20 characters, symbols, numbers.
I think the argument they're making is by making your password complex, you are more apt to save it on that computer or save it in a password saving tool.
Yep.
Which isn't a good idea anyways, because what happens if, like, for example, when you change, say, your Google password, right, and you save that in Google. Well, if someone gets access to your Google account, all those passwords that are tied into your Google are now exposed. So I think their argument is, well, if you ease up on the complexity and just make it long, like a phrase or like a sentence that you can remember, right, you're probably better off.
Right.
Because then you're not apt to save it in a password saving app or a tool like that, That's one of the things I think we should stop doing is saving our passwords on our computer. Autofill. You know how you can autofill your passwords and stuff? Mm-hmm. That should go away. Because that's just a vulnerability. Because now if someone hacks into your Google
those systems
account,
are allegedly secure. I know.
Nothing's secure.
I know.
Nothing's secure.
Here's the problem. The problem is now we live in a world where, for the most part, we're all living online. I've got probably 50 or 60 different online accounts for application services, financial stuff, my bank, all the video game stuff I do, usernames, passwords. If I have to have a separate password every time for those things, and then there are the companies that require you to keep refreshing your password, right? So it's not like I want every now and then I get like, oh, your password is old, you have to give a new password, or we've been hacked, and so you have to change your password. So at some point I have to write down the password. It doesn't really matter whether it's a short password, it's got all these complicated things, or if I'm storing it on the computer. The end goal really should just be at some point, get rid of the entire password authentication method. Because I'm already doing multi-factor authentication now with my cell phone and my Face ID, and there's like 17 different processes sometimes just to get into my email system.
I think there's...
We've all had those mornings where you have to log in like 15 different places just to get to email. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would go even further and say I think there needs to be another system in place. No, really.
Well,
really.
Another system or a different system?
Another one. Another one. I mean...
That does what?
We've seen it with the data breaches.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I don't understand. So, a data breach happens. Okay, everybody's information's already out there, right?
Well,
everybody's. One could argue everybody's information is out on the internet. Okay, we're all exposed. Let's just say we're all exposed. Now, in order for these other businesses and institutions to protect you, you know how you can sign up for, fraud alerts and stuff like that.
Yep.
They also need your personal information. So it's like, wait a minute. And my information's out there to begin with because I put it on the internet. And now you want my personal information to try to protect me.
And in order to get those services, you have to create an account and an email and a login and a password.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it needs to change. It needs to stop. It needs to, we need to roll things back, slowly peel ourselves off the internet, which I know will never happen. It probably won't. But, at this point, I would even argue, hey, we all need to have our own little identity chips embedded in our wrists. And in order to get past, further authentication into our applications and websites, we got to swipe our wrist with because how are you going to steal that? Unless you cut my hand off or, it's like Minority Report. Seriously, something more needs to be done. I don't know.
So, Chris, I think I'm more with you in terms of old school in this particular case. But to me, old school is, I think it's a combination of physically tracking your passwords. If you have a notebook that you keep secure in a secure place,
exactly.
It's not easy to hack a notebook, right? So, you keep those written down somewhere. If this is not for high traffic public facing desks or anything like that, but if you have the ability to secure a notebook, then that's probably one good step.
Oh yeah, no, I'm there with you on that. I actually have for me, everything's on a notebook and no one's going to know where it is.
Yeah. It's funny.
That's how it has to be. That's how it has to be.
Well, it doesn't matter anyway, because we're all, when we all lose electricity and water and internet, we're not going to need to worry about our passwords anyway. So it's more about survival. And I've already said on this show many, many times that if there is a dystopian future, they're not going to need a podcast host. So I need to figure out some additional skills. Mm-hmm. I'm going to need to learn how to, saw wood. Even
or kill zombies, right? I mean, one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I do have that. I do have video game skills. I don't know if they translate very well, so probably not. So I'm probably fodder for the new generation at some point. I'm wearing the red shirt in Star Trek. All right, I've used about 7 different metaphors there, so I'm going to wrap up. RJ, thanks again for being on the show, and we've got you for 3 more weeks. So
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, get ready to settle in for the ride. Thanks again.
Sounds good.
All right, that's all the time we have for today's show. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, add any thoughts you have below. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.